Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complex ideas and, well, make them usable, actionable insights that you can actually apply in your life.
Exactly. And today, we're really jumping into the deep end, looking at the core ways we can achieve maybe immediate self-mastery.
Yeah, we're tackling those psychological traps, the ones we kind of set for ourselves, often without even realizing it, the things that keep us stuck, unhappy, maybe ineffective.
Right. We're focusing on what the author of the book we're looking at calls the Erroneous Zones. These are, self-defeating ways of thinking and behaving that just stop us from being fully functional and, frankly, happy right now in the present.
And this approach, it's pretty different, isn't it? It doesn't really spend time digging through years of history or assigning blame.
Not at all. It's unconventional in that way. Very direct.
It is direct, almost confrontational sometimes in how simple it sounds. But, underneath that, it feels profoundly empowering. It just cuts through all the usual psychological jargon and basically says, look, stop making excuses. You are the result of your choices.
And if you're unhappy,
then you're actively choosing to be unhappy. That's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
It is, but the core idea is that being psychologically healthy, being effective, that's actually our natural state. And we already have everything we need inside us to get there.
So the book really pushes back against the idea that you need, decades of therapy to figure things out.
Absolutely. It basically says the past is done. We're only concerned with the choices you are making right now.
Okay, and to set the stage for this focus on perception and choice, there's that famous story the author uses right at the start, the one about the worm.
Oh yeah, the alcohol and the worm. It's a classic because it illustrates the point so perfectly.
You mind us how it goes.
Okay, so the speaker is trying to demonstrate how harmful alcohol is. He takes a worm, puts it in a glass of water.
And the worm just swims around, happy as can be.
Right. Then he takes the same worm, drops it into a glass of pure alcohol.
And poof, it just disintegrates instantly.
Yeah, exactly. Very clear cause and effect. So the speaker turns to the audience and asks, okay, what's the moral of this story?
Expecting them to say alcohol kills living things.
Right. But instead, someone from the back yells out,
I see that if you drink alcohol, you'll never have worms.
Huh. Exactly. It's funny, but it really drives the point home, doesn't it?
It really does. We see what we want to see or what confirms our existing biases.
Precisely. We filter everything through our beliefs, our values, and crucially, through the justifications we use for our own, maybe ineffective behaviors.
So if you're already kind of committed to a self-defeating pattern,
your mind will twist information to let you keep doing it. So this deep dive today is all about taking apart those internal justifications.
Got it. And we're focusing on two huge themes that run through this material. The first one,
your absolute total ability to make choices about your own emotions, your reactions, right now.
You are basically the sum total of your choices, moment by moment.
Yes. And the second big theme is the absolute necessity of present moment living.
Because all these self-defeating things, we're going to talk about guilt, worry, needing approval, they only work by hijacking your present energy.
They pull you into the past or slingshot you into the future, making you ineffective now.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear. Explore 5 of these major psychological traps, these erroneous zones that stop us from being effective and happy.
And the goal is immediate self-mastery. Redefining intelligence not by, grades or IQ scores,
but by how effectively you live, how happy you are right now. That's the real measure.
Okay, let's start right there with that definition of intelligence, because this is where I think a lot of conventional thinking leads us astray.
Yeah, we're sort of taught that intelligence is all about thinking power, right? High IQ, solving super complex problems, having fancy degrees.
Maybe a big vocabulary. The author calls it a kind of intellectual snobbery, and he thinks it's actually demoralizing.
Why demoralizing?
Well, think about it. If intelligence was just about cognitive power, then really smart people, people with PhDs, shouldn't ever be depressed or anxious or unhappy, right?
Good point. But obviously that's not the case.
Not at all. Mental health clinics are full of highly credentialed people who just can't manage their own happiness.
So the real measure of intelligence, according to the source, isn't about solving the problem itself.
No, it's about your ability to stay happy, to maintain your self-worth, whether you solve the problem or not.
Okay. That ability to keep your internal balance, that's the real shield against emotional collapse, the nervous breakdown.
Exactly. That's the ultimate weapon built right in.
Yeah.
And that capacity comes directly from this next big idea. Feelings are chosen.
Right. If you're effective, happy, living in the moment, You're intelligent because you know how to choose happiness over feeling down, choose action over being stuck.
Which, as you said, is the part people often struggle with the most.
Yeah, the immediate reaction is, what do you mean chosen? Things happen to me. People make me angry. I can't just help how I feel.
It feels automatic, like sneezing or getting caught in the rain. We're just conditioned to see it that way.
But the logic, if you trace it back,
it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Your feelings come from your thoughts.
Okay.
And you own your thoughts. Your mind is yours. Nobody else controls it.
Right.
So if you control your thoughts and feelings come from thoughts, then ultimately you control your feelings.
So the world, other people, events, they aren't making me unhappy.
It's your thoughts about those things that create the unhappiness.
Wow. Okay, that demands a huge shift in taking responsibility. Let's look at the language we use, the ways we sort of sidestep that responsibility. The book calls them list one cliches.
Yeah, these are the phrases we hear all the time, and they all scream helplessness.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Oh, the classics. You hurt my feelings. My job makes me sick. Heights scare me. I just can't help the way I feel.
And in every single one, the control is somewhere else, outside of you.
Exactly. It's like you're just a container, and bad stuff, a mean boss, a disappointing situation just gets poured into you, and there's nothing you can do.
Okay, so contrast that with the list two way of framing it. The language of, well, freedom.
Right. This sounds a bit awkward at first because we're not used to it. So instead of, he makes me sick, you have to train yourself to think and maybe even say,
I am making myself sick by focusing on what he did.
Or instead of, heights scare me, the accurate version is, I scare myself when I'm in high places.
Or you made me feel foolish becomes,
I made myself feel foolish because I valued your opinion more than my own. See the shift.
Yeah, it puts the power right back in your hands. That is the heart of personal freedom, isn't it? Switching to that list two thinking.
It is. But the author is clear, this isn't easy. You spent years, maybe decades, reinforcing list one. Habits of blaming, looking outward.
So you need to put in the time, consciously practice list two thinking to even things out. It's work. Undoing those deep shoulds and oughts.
Definitely work. But the payoff is immediate. You start reducing what the author calls immobilization.
Immobilization. Okay, explain that. That's the sign that you're choosing a negative, self-defeating emotion.
It's a main diagnostic tool, yeah. It's basically any state where you're not functioning at the level you want to be.
So it could be huge, like being totally unable to get out of bed, just brooding.
Or it could be much smaller. Mild indecisiveness, procrastination, avoiding a phone call.
If the feeling stops you from doing what you want or need to do, it's immobilizing.
Exactly. Ask yourself, does my anger stop me from thinking clearly? Does my shyness stop me from meeting people I want to meet? Does my sadness keep me from working or sleeping well?
If the answer is yes, then that emotion isn't serving you, it's hindering you.
And you don't need any more reason than that to choose to get rid of it. It's not functional.
This even applies to things we think are purely physical, like headaches. There's that fascinating story about the client who chose her headaches.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful one. This woman claimed she'd had a crippling headache every single morning for 4 years straight.
Wow. Taking pills, talking about it constantly.
Getting loads of sympathy and attention from everyone around her. And the therapy wasn't about finding a better painkiller.
No, the therapist suggested she was choosing the headaches.
Choosing them, probably unconsciously, as a really effective way to get that attention and maybe avoid dealing with other stuff in our life.
So if it was just biology, this next step wouldn't work. But because it was a choice.
The therapist told her to practice moving the headache.
Moving it, like inside her head.
Exactly. Try to shift the pain from your temples to the back of your neck. Then move it to your forehead. Then somewhere else.
What did that do?
It proved to her, physically, undeniably, that she was in control of the headache. She wasn't its victim. She had the mental power to manipulate it.
And eventually,
she stopped choosing the headaches altogether. The payoff, the sympathy and avoidance wasn't worth it when she realized she was the one creating the pain.
The implication is huge. Our mental power is immense and we barely tap into it.
If we can choose headaches, we can choose health. If we choose being stuck, we can choose growth.
The book uses that analogy, a rock versus coral.
Right. A rock just sits there, and her coral is alive, constantly growing, changing.
And the only sign of psychological life is growth.
Exactly. So choosing inertia, Choosing hurtful feelings, choosing immobilization.
Yeah.
That's a non-growth choice. It's like choosing to be a rock instead of coral.
So we need to shift from what the author calls deficiency motivation,
which is always trying to fix what you think is wrong with you, always feeling flawed or incomplete.
To growth motivation,
which is just using your energy to be happier, explore your potential, expand your abilities, just because you can. It's proactive, it's positive.
So committing to self-mastery is really committing to choosing growth right here, right now, no matter what's happening outside.
Okay, so building on that idea of choice, let's go inward to self-love, self-worth. And the core principle here is non-negotiable.
Which is?
Self-worth is not conditional. It doesn't come from outside. Others can't give it to you, they can't approve it, and they certainly can't take it away.
You are worthy because you exist.
Yeah.
Because you say so.
That's it. Full stop.
Which is, again, so contrary to what most of us learn, right? From day one, often from our families, even with good intentions.
Absolutely. We get these subtle messages constantly. You're small, you're insignificant. The adults, the authorities, they're the important ones. They hold the keys to your value.
How does that happen? Like the cheek pinching example.
Yeah, or the rigid rules about manners standing up the second an adult walks in, bowing or curtsying.
Yeah.
These things presented as politeness.
They actually teach the child, don't trust yourself, check with the grown-up first. Their judgment matters more than yours.
It creates this dependency. If my value comes from outside, then how I love others is going to be conditional too, right? Because I'm insecure. I need something back from them.
That neediness makes real love impossible, which leads to that really radical definition of love in the book.
Yeah, it's a tough one for many people. Love is defined as the ability and the willingness to let the people you care about be exactly what they choose for themselves.
Without needing them, insisting, even subtly, that they meet your emotional needs.
Correct. If you're demanding your partner or your kids act a certain way so you feel okay, so you feel secure.
That's not love. That's neediness wearing a love costume.
Exactly. Real love flows from being secure in your own self-love. If you're solid in yourself, you don't need others to prop you up. You can love them for who they are, separate from you.
Okay, so this requires constantly making a crucial distinction.
Yes. Never ever confuse your inherent self-worth, which is constant, with your behavior in a specific moment or how others behave towards you.
This is huge for parenting, right?
Yeah.
Don't say you're a bad boy.
Never say you behaved badly, that action was unacceptable. Separate the person from the behavior.
Because if we don't make that distinction for ourselves, if one mistake makes us feel fundamentally flawed,
we get caught in that self-defeating loop. Artie Lang captured it brilliantly in Knots.
How would that go again?
It's like, I feel good because she loves me. She doesn't love me, therefore I feel bad. I am bad because I feel bad.
So I must be bad because she doesn't love me.
Wow. Your whole sense of self becomes dependent on someone else's opinion.
Completely parasitic. Relying on external validation for its very existence.
So to break that, the book says start with radical self-acceptance, even physically.
Yeah.
Rejecting the idea of disliking your body.
Right. Make a list of body parts you don't like. Include the weird ones, your spleen, your inner ear bones. The point is, you don't have a body. You are your body.
To dislike your body is to reject your own existence.
And this is where modern cosmetic culture does so much damage. The constant message is your natural self is somehow wrong, shameful, disgusting.
Needs to be covered up, changed, deodorized.
Masked. Deodorants that kill natural pheromones, products to change your hair texture, your skin smell, your breath.
The hidden message is toxic. The real you isn't acceptable. You have to become artificial to be okay.
You end up creating this fraudulent you instead of embracing the authentic natural self that the author says we need to love.
And the example of Frank really shows how deep this self-rejection can go. Yeah, Frank, 32 years old, totally convinced that normal bodily functions, sweating, pooping, natural skin oils, were utterly disgusting.
Compulsively clean to a neurotic degree.
To the point where it impacted his marriage. He needed his wife to be starchy clean, insisted on showers before and after sex.
That's extreme self-rejection projected onto the physical. He couldn't accept being a human animal because he'd bought the cultural shame so completely.
Self-acceptance is the opposite, loving the whole package. If you use makeup or perfume, it should be for fun, for creativity.
Not because you're desperately trying to hide a flaw you think you have.
Right. Someone who practices self-love isn't offended by their own natural self.
And self-love also means no complaining, especially about things you can't change.
Exactly. Complaining is just self-pity in disguise. It reinforces unhappiness, and it pushes away real connection. It's often just a bid for attention.
So the bottom line is, self-hate is never, ever healthier or more effective than self-love.
Never. Make a mistake. Fine. Learn from it. Change the behavior. But don't let that momentary failure infect your core sense of worth. That stays intact.
Okay, that solid internal foundation of self-love is crucial for tackling the next big trap, needing approval from other people.
Right. And the book makes a really important distinction here. It's not saying you shouldn't enjoy approval.
No, getting praised, getting applause. That feels good. The author calls it deliciously pleasurable. We don't have to become robots.
Exactly. The problem, the erroneous zone, starts when approval shifts from being something you want to something you fundamentally need.
What's the difference in practice?
If you want it, you enjoy it when it comes, and if it doesn't, well, okay, you move on. If you need it, you fall apart when it's withheld. You get anxious, paralyzed, maybe depressed.
And that's the moment you hand over your power. You're basically saying, what you think of me matters more than what I think of myself.
Your self-worth becomes totally dependent on other people's whims. A terrible way to live.
So the goal isn't just to stop needing approval from one person like your boss or partner.
No, the goal is freedom from needing anyone's approval for anything you do or choose. Trying to get universal approval is just. It's a guaranteed path to misery.
And this dependency starts so early, based on that cultural message. Don't trust yourself, check it out with someone else first.
Yeah, historically, independent thinking wasn't exactly encouraged by big institutions, family, church, school, government. They thrive on conformity.
It really kicks off in the family. Kids need acceptance, sure, but often approval is tied directly to pleasing the parent.
Which sets up that external standard right away.
Remember that mother-daughter clothing example?
Oh yeah, the mom says, wear whatever you want today. So the little girl picks striped pants and a polka dot top, expressing herself.
And the mom's reaction?
Horrified. Oh no, honey, stripes and dots clash. That looks silly.
So what happens next week?
The child doesn't choose. She asks, Mommy, what should I wear? She learned the lesson. My choice isn't valid unless someone else approves it. She starts checking everything, even small things.
Then you get to school and it's like conformity training camp.
Totally. You're taught to obey, follow rules, ask permission for everything, sit where you're told, learn the right answers.
Independent thinking often gets you in trouble.
And the whole reward system, grades, gold stars, praise, it's all about pleasing the authority figure. Approval is the currency.
There's that story about the college students freaking out.
Right. After years of being told exactly what to do, how to study, what the test will cover, they get to a college class where the professor says, okay, study whatever interests you this semester. It's your education.
And instead of being excited...
Panic. Total panic. They rush the professor. How many pages? What font? What are the test questions? What should we read?
They're terrified of making their own choices because they've only ever performed for external validation, for the grade, not for learning itself.
And this deep fear of disapproval is just perfect bait for advertisers.
Oh yeah, they play on this need constantly.
They know exactly how to push those buttons. They reinforce that idea. What others think is way more important than what you think. They're not selling you soap.
They're selling you freedom from being judged negatively by others.
It's kind of absurd when you see it laid bare. Remember those old commercials? The waitress shaming the wife over ring around the collar.
Or ads implying you'll be a social outcast if you wear the wrong jeans or have baggy pantyhose.
The underlying message is always, buy this or people won't like you. And their disapproval defines your worth. It's cynical, really.
But the irony, the thing we have to keep reminding ourselves...
is that you can never please everyone. It's impossible.
Right. For anything you believe or choose, someone out there believes the exact opposite. Just as strongly. You've always got a 50-50 shot of someone disapproving.
So you just have to embrace that. Abraham Lincoln had a great perspective on this.
What did he say?
Basically, that if he stopped to read, let alone answer, all the criticism directed at him, he'd never get anything done. He knew he had to stay focused internally.
He said something like, if the end result proves I was right, the criticism won't matter. If the end proves I was wrong, 10 angels swearing I was right won't make a difference.
Exactly. Success was based on his internal compass and objective results, not the noise from outside.
Yet people still cling desperately to needing approval. Why? What's the payoff?
There are some powerful, though ultimately self-destructive, neurotic payoffs.
Okay, like what?
First, it lets you blame others for your feelings. If I'm upset because you disapprove, then it's your fault. I feel bad. Takes the focus off me.
Second.
It helps you avoid change. If others are responsible for my unhappiness, then it's up to them to fix it. I don't have to do the hard work of changing myself.
And the big one.
It helps you avoid risk. Sticking with what pleases others feels safer than striking out on your own path, which always risks disapproval, maybe even rejection.
Okay, so if we want to dismantle this need, we need some practical strategies. The book suggests actually seeking out disapproval sometimes.
Yeah, as an experiment. Go out and deliberately disagree with someone, wear something unusual, state an unpopular opinion. Just see what happens.
And realize the sky doesn't fall. Their disapproval is just their opinion. It only has power if you give it power.
Another strategy. Practice ignoring abuse or criticism, like that story about the speaker getting heckled.
In Berlin, right. This guy just unleashes a long, angry rant.
And the speaker's colleague, after listening patiently, just says a calm, simple,
okay,
and moves on.
Total refusal to engage or let the heckler's opinion define his worth. That okay showed complete internal control. Abuse only sticks if you let it.
And finally, cut out the unnecessary apologies.
Right. Unless you genuinely regret a specific action and need to make amends, most apologies are just pleas for forgiveness. They're about seeking validation.
You're saying, please tell me I'm still okay, even though I did that thing you might not like, which gives the other person total control over your self-acceptance. If you did something you regret, fix it if you can, learn from it, resolve not to repeat it. But stop begging for external validation. Keep the power with you.
Needing approval often keeps us tied to how things used to be or how others think they should be, which leads us nicely into breaking free from the past itself.
Ah, yes, the past. The ultimate psychological prison for so many people. The core idea here is that defining yourself by your history is incredibly limiting.
The author has that blunt phrase for it.
Calls the past a bucket of ashes.
Wow. So the idea that you need to understand your history to be effective now, that's not quite right for personal identity.
It's true for understanding society, maybe.
Yeah.
But for you, constantly explaining your present struggles by referencing your past makes you like a ghost, just wallowing. The reality is, you are what you choose today.
Not what you chose yesterday. The past is just data for learning, not a life sentence.
Exactly. But we have these handy phrases, these 4 neurotic sentences the author calls the IMs, that keep us chained to that history.
Right. The ones that stop us from growing right now. What are they again?
They are. Number 1, that's just me. Number 2, I've always been that way.
Number 3, I can't help it.
Number 4, it's just my nature.
Verbal handcuffs. They lock your current behavior to past patterns and basically say change is impossible.
We see it all the time. Remember the example of the grandmother at dinner?
Oh yeah, insisting on serving everyone's plate herself, making everyone wait just because.
Oh, I've always done it this way. That label, always been that way, becomes the reason itself. It justifies staying stuck, even when it's inefficient or annoying.
So where do these I'm labels come from?
Mostly 2 places. First, they get pinned on us by others, especially when we're young. Parents, teachers, friends. You're the smart one. You're clumsy. You're shy.
Sometimes meant well, sometimes not.
Right. And the second source, maybe even more common, is convenient avoidance. These are the labels we stick on ourselves to get out of doing things that are hard, unpleasant, or maybe risky.
This sounds very familiar.
It's everywhere. The person who avoids fixing things around the house by saying, oh, you know me, I'm just not mechanical.
Is it true they're not mechanical? Or is the label just a useful excuse?
Often it's the excuse. It's a strategy, maybe unconscious, to avoid the effort or the possibility of failing at the task.
The book gives that detailed example of Horace.
Right, Horace. 46 years old, missed out on college because of the war and family stuff. Now he genuinely wants to go back. Really desires it.
But he's stuck, paralyzed by the fear of failing, of not being smart enough after all these years.
So what does he tell himself? He uses the full I'm package.
Which is?
I'm too old, I'm not smart enough, I'm bad at math, and the final nail in the coffin.
You know what? I'm not really interested anymore anyway.
That last one is the ultimate self-lie.
Right.
It lets him save face and avoid confronting the real fear.
By using those labels, he's basically saying, game over in this area. My history dictates my future. I'm done.
It creates a vicious circle. If you believe I'm shy, you act shy, you avoid people, which reinforces the belief that you are, indeed, shy. The label becomes self-fulfilling.
And whether the label is about skills, I'm bad at gardening, or personality, I'm lazy, the payoff is the same.
The neurotic dividend is always avoidance of change.
It keeps you safe, static, like being in that gaily decorated box the author mentions. Comfortable maybe, but sealed off from life and growth.
And if you blame your past, My parents labeled me. Society made me feel this way. You've got the perfect excuse for staying stuck right now.
Because if it's their fault?
And there's nothing I can do about it now. It absolves you of responsibility for making different choices today.
Okay, so breaking free starts with awareness. Catching yourself using those I'm sentences.
Exactly. Become hyper-aware of when you say or think them, and then challenge them, ruthlessly.
And replace them with, what, present moment language?
Yes. Instead of, I'm forgetful, which sounds like a fixed state.
Try thinking or saying, I chose not to remember that just now. Or, I am choosing to be clumsy in this moment.
It sounds almost silly, maybe, but it's revolutionary. It puts choice back into the equation.
If I chose it now, I can choose differently next time.
Precisely. It takes practice, constant repetition, but that's how you chip away at the prison walls of the past. All right, moving from the past, let's tackle the two emotions that are masters at hijacking the present moment by focusing on other times: guilt and worry.
The big two. The author lumps them together because diagnostically they do the same thing, right?
Exactly the same thing. They immobilize your present energy. They are the temporal traps.
And their definitions really highlight their uselessness. Guilt is
present moment immobilization, focusing on a past event. And no amount of feeling guilty now can ever change what happened back then.
And worry is
present moment immobilization, focusing on a future event.
Yeah.
And no amount of worrying now will change what happens tomorrow.
There was that great quote, it isn't today's experience that drives men mad.
It is the remorse for something that happened yesterday and the dread of what tomorrow may disclose. Perfectly captures it. Guilt looks back, worry looks forward, and now gets crushed between them.
But our culture often gets this wrong, doesn't it? It almost treats guilt and worry as virtues.
Oh, absolutely. There's this subtle, pervasive message. If you really care, you should worry. Or if it feels too good, you should feel guilty.
It confuses these paralyzing emotions with being responsible or moral.
Let's take guilt first. The author argues it's possibly the most useless erroneous zone because it achieves absolutely nothing positive.
Now, learning from a mistake, deciding not to do it again, that's useful.
That's healthy, effective learning. Guilt is different. Guilt is being so upset, so stuck on that past thing that you can't function properly now. It's completely futile.
So where does it come from, this tendency towards guilt?
Two main sources, according to the book. One is leftover manipulation from childhood, usually from parents.
The guilt trips.
Exactly. The other is adopting these external, often impossible standards for ourselves, shoulds and oughts, that we don't truly buy into, leading to this constant low-level anxiety about not being good enough.
Let's talk about the parental manipulation first. That stuff is powerful.
Insidiously powerful. It often kicks in when a child starts seeking independence. Think of the classic, "Look what I sacrificed for you" lines.
I only stayed married to your father because of you. Ugh.
Oh, right. It dumps responsibility for the parent's unhappiness right onto the child's shoulders. Or the passive-aggressive stuff.
Like when the kid is slow doing a chore and the parent sighs dramatically, oh, never mind, I'll do it myself, even with my bad back.
And starts lifting something heavy, painting this picture in the child's mind of the parent collapsing in pain, all because the child didn't act fast enough. It's pure manipulation.
And it works. It conditions the child to feel that pang of guilt automatically whenever those buttons are pushed. They become emotional hostages.
Another big area for guilt is sex, right?
Yeah, often tied to old puritanical ideas. If it feels good, it must be sinful. You should feel bad about enjoying it.
People feeling guilty about fantasies or looking at certain things or even just enjoying their own bodies. The underlying message is self-denial is virtuous. Pleasure is suspicious.
So how do you fight back against guilt manipulation? The book has that brilliant strategy using you feel statements.
Yes, this is crucial for diffusing guilt trips. The example dialogue between the daughter moving out and her manipulative mother is classic.
The daughter says she's moving and the mother immediately goes for the jugular.
Right. Clutches her chest. My heart, I'll have a heart attack. I need you here. Total emotional blackmail.
But instead of caving or feeling instantly guilty, the daughter uses the you feel technique. What does she say?
She calmly responds something like, "Mother, you're concerned about your health and you think you can't manage without me, see?" She acknowledges the mother's feeling, but doesn't accept responsibility for it.
It's the mother's concern, not the daughter's fault.
Exactly. And when the mother escalates, "You're killing me by leaving," the daughter stays calm, refuses the bait, and might say something like, "Is there anything else you want to tell me before I go?"
She stays detached, refuses to own the mother's emotion. It cuts the manipulation off at the knees.
By saying you feel, instead of getting drawn into I feel guilty, she keeps control. And once you learn to diffuse it, the manipulation loses its power permanently.
Okay, so that's guilt, the past trap. What about worry, the future trap? The key point here is that worry is not the same as planning.
Absolutely not. Planning is useful. It's present moment action aimed at creating a better future. Worry is just spinning your wheels. Mental paralysis.
And it achieves nothing. It doesn't make the feared outcome less likely.
Not one bit. In fact, it probably makes you less equipped to handle things if they happen. Yeah. Because you've drained your energy fretting.
And most of the stuff we worry about,
we have zero control over anyway. War, the economy, earthquakes, whether it will rain on a picnic. Worrying is futile.
And often, the thing we dread so much either never happens or if it does,
it turns out to be manageable or sometimes even weirdly a good thing. Like the story of Harold the Warrior.
Right, Harold. Obsessed with the fear of getting laid off, lost sleep, lost weight, totally consumed by anxiety about this one future possibility.
Spent months, maybe years, tormenting himself.
And then he actually does get the pink slip. The dreaded event happens.
And guess what? Within 3 days, he lands a much better job. Higher pay, better work. The catastrophe turned out to be a blessing.
Proving all that worry was completely wasted energy, self-inflicted torture for nothing.
And the ultimate sign of a true worry addict.
Worrying about having nothing to worry about. They get so used to the anxiety, they actually seek out problems just to keep the worry machine fueled.
So why do we cling to these useless emotions, guilt and worry? What's the underlying payoff for both?
It comes back to that same core reason.
Avoidance. It's always avoidance.
How does that work?
By letting your mind get stuck on the past, guilt, or stuck on the future, worry, you successfully avoid the hard work and the risk of taking effective action right now.
The author mentioned his own experience with this when trying to write.
Yeah, he'd sit down to face the difficult task of writing, and suddenly his mind would jump to worrying about his daughter falling off her bike or something completely unrelated.
That worry successfully ate up the present moment, giving him an excuse to avoid the challenging work.
Exactly. Guilt and worry are perfect excuses. I can't start that project. I'm too worried about how it will turn out. Or I can't pursue that opportunity. I feel too guilty about what happened last time. It keeps you safely stuck in the box.
Okay, so we need concrete strategies to eliminate these. For guilt, the key is internalizing one core sentence.
Yes. You need to drill this into your head. My feeling guilty will not change the past, nor will it make me a better person.
See the past as fixed data. Learn from it if needed, make amends if appropriate, but then let it go. Guilt itself is just paralysis.
And for worry, the strategy is to make it seem ridiculous by scheduling it.
Right. Give yourself specific, short worry times, maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 in the afternoon.
And during that time, worry your heart out. Let it rip. But if a worry pops up outside that time,
you tell yourself, nope, gotta save that for my scheduled worry session.
The very act of scheduling this useless activity highlights how absurd it is, and the habit starts to lose its grip. You see it for the waste of time it really is.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Taking charge through choice, building that internal self-love, ditching the need for approval, breaking free from past labels, and conquering the time traps of guilt and worry.
It's a comprehensive roadmap to dismantling those self-defeating patterns. And when you start eliminating these erroneous zones, a picture emerges of a different kind of person, a fully functioning, psychologically free individual.
What does that person look like? How do they operate?
Well, they're definitely not warriors. They live almost entirely in the present moment. They actually kind of like ambiguity because they see it as potential, as opportunity.
They're focused on getting fulfillment now because now is all there really is.
Exactly. And they are radically internally directed. What other people think of them, it's just not really their primary concern, literally unconcerned with external evaluations.
So they're not trying to impress people, not playing social games.
Not really. There's an honesty, a simplicity there. Their focus is on being effective, on living well, not on getting validated.
And crucially, they're non-defensive.
That's a big one. They don't need to win arguments or convince everyone they're right. If someone disagrees, they can just shrug and say, okay, we see it differently.
Because their self-worth isn't on the line. It's internal, solid. So criticism or failure, it's just data, information about what worked and what didn't.
Right. It's not a personal attack on their value as a human being. They accept others as they are, too. They've eliminated that internal nagging sentence.
If only you were more like me.
Exactly. They understand that anger or resentment towards someone is usually just frustration that the other person isn't behaving the way you want them to. They let others be.
Which leads us to that final, really provocative idea from the book about happiness.
Yeah. People who are free from these erroneous zones, they don't chase happiness. They don't pursue it as a goal.
They just live.
Yeah.
Effectively, authentically, choosing growth.
And happiness is simply the natural result, the payoff. It comes automatically when you live this way.
So the ultimate message isn't about striving for some future state of bliss.
No. It's about the choice you can make right now, in this very moment. Choose to stop being just an observer of your life, trapped by the past or anxious about the future.
Choose instead to be a full participant. Right here, right now. Choose growth, choose life, choose to be effective.
That's the power you have. Right now.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're here again to really dig into some powerful ideas from key sources and bring that knowledge straight to you, to your life.
That's right.
Today, our mission, well, it's maybe the most fundamental one we could tackle: personal mastery. We're diving deep into sources that help us spot and, more importantly, escape what they call erroneous zones. These are those self-defeating patterns, you know? The thoughts and behaviors that kind of stand between you and just being genuinely happy.
It's really an investigation into radical self-responsibility, isn't it?
Totally.
We're pushing back against that common idea that our emotions are just things that, happen to us.
Right, like we're passive victims of circumstance.
Exactly. These sources insist that if you're choosing unhappiness right now, or depression, or anger, you're actually choosing the thoughts and behaviors that lead there. You are the architect of your own emotional life, whether you realize it yet or not.
That's a heavy concept to start with. And to really grasp how deep these perceptions go and how much we resist changing them, let's kick off with an anecdote the source material uses. It perfectly sets the stage.
Okay.
It's about a speaker trying to convince a group of heavy drinkers to give up alcohol. He wants to demonstrate just how toxic it is.
The worm story.
That's the one. So he has two containers. One's got pure water, the other pure alcohol.
Right.
He drops a worm into the water first, and the worm swims around perfectly fine, happy as can be.
It's healthy.
Then he takes that same worm out, drops it into the alcohol.
And poof, it disintegrates instantly.
Exactly. Gruesome but effective, he thinks. So the speaker turns to the audience feeling pretty triumphant and asks, okay, what's the moral of this experiment?
And you expect them to say, alcohol is poison.
Right. But instead, a voice from the back of the room pipes up, completely unfazed by the worm's demise.
And says,
I see that if you drink alcohol, you'll never have worms.
Briefly chuckles. It perfectly illustrates the point, doesn't it?
It really does. It just nails the human condition when it comes to change. We see what we want to see, what fits our existing beliefs, our prejudices, our justifications.
Our erroneous zones, these self-sabotaging habits, are things we cling to even when we kind of know intellectually they're hurting us.
So the core philosophy we're exploring today is actually refreshingly simple on the surface.
It is. Being healthy, that's the natural state. And being happy. It's not some complex secret only gurus or the super rich can unlock.
So what are the ingredients then?
Well, the sources say they're pretty straightforward. Clear thinking, hard work, a sense of humor, and self-confidence. Basic stuff, really.
And importantly, this approach kind of cuts through all the complicated psychological excuses we sometimes hear.
Right. It moves away from blaming everything on, I was harshly toilet trained or something from decades ago.
Okay.
Instead, the focus is entirely on the now, the present moment.
So two main themes are going to guide us through this deep dive.
Exactly. First, your absolute power to make choices about your own emotions. Real choices.
And second,
the critical importance of present moment living. Being here, now.
If you're not fully engaged in the present, you're essentially living in an erroneous zone by default.
That's the idea. You're postponing fulfillment. You're putting life on hold.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of intelligence then. Because the way the sources define it is, well, it's pretty radical compared to how we usually think about it.
It really is. We're taught intelligence is about IQ scores.
Yeah.
Right? Or fancy degrees, or solving complex math problems.
Yeah, academic achievement, basically.
But as the source points out kind of wryly, you find plenty of highly educated people in institutions who are deeply unhappy, or neurotic, or depressed.
So solving Einstein's equations doesn't automatically mean you've solved how to live a happy life.
Not at all. So the truer measure, The more functional definition of intelligence, according to these sources,
Yeah.
is simply an effective, happy life lived each day and in each present moment of every day.
Wow. Okay, that shifts the perspective completely.
It's essential. An intelligent person, in this context, understands something crucial. Even if they face a genuinely unsolvable external problem, like, say, massive debt, a serious illness, losing someone they love.
Right, things you can't just think away.
Exactly. Even then, they can still choose happiness for themselves. Or, at the very least, they can refuse to choose immobilizing unhappiness.
So they separate the external challenge from their internal sense of self-worth.
That's the key. They manage their internal state regardless of the external storm.
Okay, but I can hear some listeners pushing back right now, thinking, hang on, does this idea that unhappiness is a choice? Doesn't that trivialize real trauma, real grief?
That's a really important question.
And a fair one.
We live in a world where terrible things happen. How do we square this radical self-responsibility with genuine human suffering? And the sources do address this nuance directly. That initial stab of pain or sadness or even anger when something genuinely bad happens, that's automatic. It's human. It's unavoidable.
That initial reaction isn't the erroneous zone.
No, that's just being human. The erroneous zone is the sustained dwelling on that pain. It's the choice to let initial sadness curdle into chronic depression, or let initial frustration fester into crippling anxiety or constant rage.
Ah, so it's about the duration and the management of the emotion, not the initial feeling itself.
Precisely. Someone hurts you, you feel pained. That's a given. But if you then spend the next 5 years waking up every single day and consciously feeding yourself thoughts that keep that painful feeling alive.
Thoughts of revenge, or how unfair it was, or how inadequate you must be.
Exactly. That is a choice. You're actively choosing the feeling by choosing the thoughts that generate it.
This also ties into that idea about the nervous breakdown, or NBD, as the source calls it. It says it's basically a non-existent diagnosis.
Right, because nerves don't actually break down. It's a metaphor. What people call a nervous breakdown is really a state of severe emotional shutdown, immobilization.
Which can be, ironically, a very effective, though destructive way to avoid taking responsibility for your life.
It can be. But intelligent people, in this functional sense, those really in charge of themselves, they know how to choose happiness over depression. They maintain their own well-being, whether the external problem gets solved or not.
The stress of life hits everyone.
Absolutely. The functional person just manages their reaction to that stress differently.
And it seems like language is absolutely key here. The power of choosing our words, choosing our thoughts.
It all hinges on it. Culturally, we're soaked in what the source calls the self-defeating language of List 1.
Give us some examples.
Oh, you know them. You hurt my feelings. You makes me sick. I can't help the way I feel.
Yeah, common phrases.
And the underlying message in all of them is that someone else or something external is pulling your emotional levers.
Which conveniently lets you off the hook, responsibility-wise.
Exactly. Whereas the accurate, responsible logic List 2 sounds much tougher. But the sources argue it's the truth.
Like what?
Like, I hurt my feelings because of the things I told myself about your reaction to me. Or even just, I made myself feel bad.
Oof. That's harder to swallow.
It is. Or even owning the manipulation sometimes. I've chosen to be angry because I know I can control others with my temper.
That level of honesty is intense.
But that shift from you hurt me to I hurt myself based on how I interpreted what you did, that's the fundamental leap towards personal mastery.
You feel what you think.
And you can learn to think differently about pretty much anything.
Yeah.
If you decide to put in the work, you can reclaim total control over your emotional destiny.
Okay. So if we accept that radical idea, that core principle of internal choice, now we have to look outward a bit at the specific systemic forces that seem designed to pull us back into those self-defeating habits.
Right, the big, common erroneous zones that operate almost like traps in our culture.
And the first major one the source tackles head-on is this constant and ultimately futile demand for justice, the justice trap.
Yeah, this is a powerful section because it goes right after one of the biggest myths we internalize from childhood, that the world operates on some kind of cosmic fairness balance sheet.
And the source just says flat out, justice, in that sense of a universal guaranteed balance of rewards and punishments. It just doesn't exist.
It's basically a myth a human invention with almost zero grounding in the physical or biological reality we actually live in.
Like the examples from nature.
Exactly. Look at nature. Robins eat worms. Yeah. Spiders eat flies. Lions eat gazelles. There's no fairness committee in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's just function, survival.
Right. Yet we're conditioned to expect, even demand, this kind of cosmic justice in human affairs.
And it only becomes an erroneous zone when we choose to punish ourselves emotionally, because reality doesn't match the myth.
Precisely. It's not saying don't fight for fairness. We absolutely should work to make systems more just, advocate for change, but we have to refuse to be emotionally immobilized by the simple fact that injustice exists. It's a constant.
Choosing depression or rage over it doesn't change the external reality.
It changes nothing externally, but it costs you your present moment happiness, your effectiveness. You've chosen neurosis over action, essentially.
And we see this disconnect most starkly when we look at our own systems, right? Legal, political.
Oh, absolutely. They promise justice, but the reality is often, well, different. The source gives examples like powerful people seeming to evade consequences for things that would land others in jail.
Like Agnew in taxes or Nixon, while prisons are often filled with the poor and less powerful.
It highlights a functional reality. Influence often means playing by different rules. Now, if you choose chronic outrage or depression about that fact,
you're hurting yourself, not them.
Exactly. Your upset doesn't fix the system, but it wrecks your own peace.
And this demand for fairness bleeds into our personal lives too, doesn't it? That phrase, it's not fair.
Oh, it's incredibly corrosive.
Yeah.
Because it's almost always based on external comparison.
Like, if they get to do that, I should too, or it's not fair, you have more than me.
Right. And the moment you start constantly comparing your situation to someone else's actions or possessions, you've just handed over control of your emotions to them.
How so?
Because if they do something you perceive as better or advantageous, you either demand that same advantage or you choose to feel unhappy, resentful, or victimized. Their actions dictate your feelings.
And this is the bedrock of jealousy, isn't it?
Absolutely. John Dryden called jealousy the jaundice of the soul. And what is it? Fundamentally, it's a demand for justice in a relationship.
That demand that someone love you in a very specific way you've decided is fair.
Exactly. And when they inevitably fail to meet that rigid external demand, you select anger, hurt, suspicion.
And the source says jealousy is so damaging because it comes from a lack of internal self-worth.
Precisely. You're making the other person's behavior the measuring stick for your own adequacy, instead of relying on your internal assessment of your own value.
The story of Helen illustrates this, right? Her husband has an affair.
Yes, and Helen becomes completely obsessed, not with moving forward, but with understanding why. Where did I go wrong? Wasn't I good enough?
She's framing it entirely around the injustice of his actions and her supposed failure.
Her thinking is trapped in that demand for fairness within the relationship contract. She's letting his choice, which ultimately is about him, his issues, his decisions, independent of her actual worth, dictate her entire emotional state.
And she could spend years stuck in that analysis paralysis.
Years. Trying to figure out the root cause of his betrayal, when maybe it was just his own stuff, his own erroneous zones, things she can't control anyway.
And the source even warns that this focus on evening the score could lead her down a destructive path herself.
Right, like thinking about having an affair just to make things fair. Classic erroneous zone thinking, doubling down on destructive behavior in the name of some abstract justice.
So if Helen had eliminated that justice trap, how would she react differently?
She'd focus entirely on herself, acknowledge the pain, absolutely, it hurts, but refuse to let his conduct dictate her internal state long term. She stops running her life based on his failures and starts charting her own course, autonomously.
But why do people cling so hard to this justice myth? What's the payoff? It seems so costly.
Well, there are payoffs, even for the neurotic ones. It can make you feel superior, honorable, the wronged party.
The martyr complex?
Sort of. Or you get sympathy, pity, attention from others because you've been victimized. That emotional reward, that status as the wrong saint, keeps you safe.
Safe from what?
Safe from the really hard work of looking inward, taking responsibility, and making changes yourself. It's easier to blame the unfair world.
Okay. So if we start to see that the external world isn't designed to be fair, we often fall into another trap, right? We replace that search for justice with rigid adherence to, well, meaningless rules.
Exactly. Which leads us straight into the next major erroneous zone, the trap of convention. Breaking the barrier of convention.
This is what you call the tyranny of the should,
Yes, the shoulds, the musts, the oughts. The source brings up psychologist Albert Ellis and his brilliant term, masturbation.
Masturbation.
It is. And it perfectly captures that compulsive need to do things you feel you must or ought to do, even if you'd rather not, and even if those rules actually get in the way of being effective, healthy, or happy.
So shoulds are only good if they actually align with your own chosen goals.
Right. If they help your present moment fulfillment, great. But if they're just external pressures you've blindly adopted, they're unhealthy.
And this obedience to convention, it links back to what you said earlier about locus of control.
Directly. It stems from having an external locus of control. The source estimates maybe 75% of people in our culture are primarily externally oriented.
Meaning they blame or credit outside factors for how they feel.
Exactly. Luck, fate, the government, their parents, their friends, someone or something else is responsible for their emotional state.
Whereas the internally oriented person says, okay, circumstances are what they are, but I choose how I respond.
Precisely. But the external person is always looking outside for validation or blame. We see this everywhere today, don't we? Tying self-worth to social media likes, for instance.
Or feeling genuinely happy only when your political party wins.
Classic external orientation. And it manifests in these sometimes absurd, rigid behaviors based on tradition or convention that often have no logical reason to exist anymore.
Like the mattress tag example. Keeping it on for years, fearing the penalty of law.
Chuckles, yes. Even though that warning is for the seller, not the buyer. We just absorb these rules about proper behavior and let them run our lives without questioning them.
Think about other rituals, too, like going to bed at a specific bedtime, even if you're wide awake, just because, well, it's bedtime.
Or rigid fashion rules. The source has that funny image of New Englanders on vacation in Hawaii. It hits October 1st, it's still 85 degrees out, but bam! Out come the heavy woolens and tweeds.
Because convention dictates that's the correct attire for the season, regardless of comfort or logic.
And it affects smaller things, too, things that eat up our time and energy. Finishing a book you actively dislike just because you started it.
Oh, I've done that.
Haven't we all? Or tipping generously for terrible service just to avoid feeling awkward.
Or clapping politely at a really bad performance.
All because we're slaves to these unspoken musts. We want to fit in, avoid disapproval.
So these musts and shoulds, they create a lot of internal strain because you're constantly trying to live up to someone else's standard.
Huge strain. It's not your own self-chosen path. Etiquette is another interesting area. Good manners, based on genuine consideration for others, that's productive.
Makes sense.
But masturbation is when you're consulting a rule book on the proper way to eat corn on the cob, or agonizing over exactly when to send a thank you note instead of just acting out of genuine, self-determined consideration.
So the goal isn't to become rude or deliberately unconventional.
Not at all. The goal is to become a shrugger, as the source puts it. You choose your own path, efficiently, quietly, often without needing to make a big fuss or be hostile about it.
You just don't comply internally.
Exactly. Those foolish rules and traditions aren't going anywhere. But you don't have to be enslaved by them. You see the external expectation, you acknowledge it, and then you simply choose the behavior that actually serves your present moment fulfillment, often with just an internal shrug and zero guilt.
And this idea connects to something deeper, doesn't it? Like self-governance. You mentioned Hermann Hesse.
Yes, from Demian. Hesse talks about how people who are too lazy or comfortable to think for themselves just obey the external laws. But others sense their own laws within them.
So they get to choose what's allowed or forbidden for them, regardless of the cultural script.
That's it. Hesse is describing the fully functioning person. They are the ultimate authority on their own behavior. They set their own internal guidelines. Sometimes these might be stricter than society's norms, but often they're far more liberating.
They ditch the shoulds and focus on what's effective and genuine for them.
That's the ultimate freedom from cultural programming.
Okay, so once we start dismantling these external pressures, the need for fairness, the grip of convention we have to turn inward again, we need to face the emotional roadblocks we build ourselves.
Right. The truly useless emotions, as the source calls them. And a big one is anger. It's time for farewell to anger.
Now, this is tricky. We often hear anger is natural, maybe even necessary. That expressing it is better than bottling it up, right? Leads to ulcers and stuff.
That's the common wisdom.
Yeah.
And the source does concede that expressing anger is generally healthier than suppressing it long term. Suppression can lead to physical issues. But the most effective, the healthiest stance is not having the anger in the first place.
To eliminate the need for that choice between suppression and explosion.
Exactly. If you can eliminate the thought process that generates the anger, you're free from that dilemma altogether.
And the source is pretty blunt about severe anger, calling it a form of
temporary insanity, because when you're truly enraged, you are by definition not in rational control of your behavior. And that's fundamentally irrational.
Physiologically, it's terrible for you too. Hypertension, heart problems.
Definitely. And psychologically, it creates guilt, damages relationships. And like all emotions, it starts with your thoughts.
You tell yourself things like, the world should be different, or that person shouldn't have done that.
Right. And then you select anger as the emotional response. Often because unconsciously, perhaps, it serves some kind of purpose for you.
Okay, but here's the challenge I think many people face. They believe anger works. They feel it gets them results, makes people listen, commands respect, gets faster service.
Right. That perception of effectiveness is strong.
So how does the source square that with saying anger never really works to change others?
It clarifies that anger only works as a short-term manipulation tactic based on fear. It might get temporary compliance, but it never inspires genuine, long-term change or real respect.
In fact, it often backfires.
Hugely. It often makes the other person more determined to control or provoke the angry person, precisely because the angry person is so visibly out of control.
Like the example of the angry parent and the misbehaving kids.
Classic scenario. The angrier the parent gets, the more the kids often act out. Why?
Because they realize they can control the parent's emotions.
Exactly. They figure out that making mom or dad go ballistic gives them emotional control. They hold the power. They can push the button and get a big reaction for the small price of maybe 5 minutes in their room.
So the parent's anger is actually counterproductive.
Completely.
Yeah.
The underlying thought process for the angry parent is often neurotic. Why can't you be more like I want you to be? They're essentially denying the child the right to be who they are choosing to be in that moment.
So the functional alternative isn't suppressing the anger, but changing the thought, accepting the reality of their behavior, even if you don't like it.
Precisely. You might not like the behavior, but you don't have to choose rage about it. If they misbehave, you select a functional consequence, a logical outcome, not an emotional meltdown.
That keeps you in charge of yourself.
And it removes the emotional payoff the child gets from your outburst.
And the source suggests a powerful antidote to anger. Something mutually exclusive.
Yes. Humor and laughter.
You literally cannot be angry and laugh genuinely at the same time.
It's impossible. They cancel each other out. Laughter, the source says beautifully, is the sunshine of the soul. Without it, nothing can grow.
We just take life too seriously sometimes.
Way too seriously. Healthy, functional people tend to have this unhostile sense of humor. They can step back, see the absurdity in frustrating situations, and choose amusement or gentle irony over rage.
Think about common anger triggers. They look pretty ridiculous through that lens. Road rage, for example.
Totally futile. Yelling at a slow driver changes nothing about their speed, but it sends your blood pressure through the roof.
Or getting mad at inanimate objects, punching a wall because you stubbed your toe.
The only result is a bruised fist and maybe a hole in the drywall. Not helpful.
Or losing your temper when you can't find something.
Which just makes it harder to think clearly and actually look for it effectively. None of these angry reactions are productive.
So why do they persist? What's the hidden payoff for clinging to anger?
Well, a couple big ones. First, it lets you shift responsibility outwards. I couldn't help it. I just snapped. It makes it seem like the anger happened to you, absolving you of fault.
Takes the blame off.
Right. And second, it gives you that short-term manipulative power over people who are afraid of your outbursts. Kids, subordinates, maybe even partners.
You feel powerful, but it's a power built on fear.
Exactly. A false neurotic power, not genuine influence or respect. Once you really see anger as just a strategy to avoid responsibility and manipulate through fear, you gain the power to choose differently, to eliminate it.
Okay, so mastering anger is huge. But then there's another internal roadblock, maybe even more common, that just cripples our effectiveness.
Ah, yes. Procrastination. Time for putting an end to procrastination now.
This feels almost universal, doesn't it?
It really does. The source calls it an art form, the art of avoiding the present moment. It's a convenient escape from living fully now.
But it's not a comfortable escape.
Never. It's always accompanied by anxiety. It's like living in yesterday and avoiding today, constantly.
How does it function as self-delusion?
Well, you decide you're going to do something, but later, tomorrow, next week. And that intention, that plan to do it in the future, feels good. It substitutes for the actual effort or discomfort of doing it now.
So you avoid the immediate risk, the risk of not doing it well, or the unpleasantness of the task itself.
Exactly. And this feeds right into a really common pattern the source highlights: the self-delusion of the doer.
It's that.
The procrastinator often leaves themselves the absolute bare minimum amount of time to finish something. They engineer a time crunch.
On purpose.
Often unconsciously, yes. Because then, when the result is inevitably rushed, sloppy, or incomplete, they have the perfect built-in excuse.
I just didn't have enough time.
Bingo. But it's usually a lie they tell themselves to protect their ego from the possibility of just not being good enough, or from having to face the task properly.
If you were genuinely that busy, you wouldn't have time to complain about being busy.
You'd just be doing the work. This links directly to the role of the critic.
How so?
Well, the person who consistently avoids taking action avoids risk. What do they often become? A critic. Someone sitting on the sidelines, watching the people actually doing things and pointing out their flaws.
Because it's easier to critique than to act.
Infinitely easier. Criticism requires much less effort, involves zero personal risk, and avoids the messy business of change. Think about the real doers, the high achievers in any field.
They don't have time to sit around criticizing others.
They're too busy doing. If you find yourself spending a lot of time as an observer and a critic rather than a participant, that's a potential sign you're stuck in inaction, using critique to justify staying safe.
And boredom, is that connected too?
Directly. Boredom, the source argues, is a choice. Life itself is never inherently boring. People choose to be bored.
How is it a choice?
Boredom is simply an inability or an unwillingness to use the present moment in a fulfilling, self-directed way. You choose to let the now slip by, maybe worrying vaguely about the future, and then you blame your surroundings.
This job is dull. This town is boring.
Right. But the environment is neutral. The experience of boredom is your internal choice, your failure to engage with the present creatively.
So if we strip away all the excuses, what's the real reason we put things off? Even things we claim we want to do, like exercising or learning something new.
At its core, it's avoidance. Procrastination lets you avoid unpleasant tasks, obviously. It lets you avoid the risk of failure by simply not trying anything difficult or new.
And it keeps a fantasy alive.
Yes, the fantasy that things will magically get better later, that some external force, like a Santa Claus, will intervene and make it easier. And of course, there's a secondary payoff too. Sympathy. You get to complain about how stressed and overwhelmed you are because of all the things you're putting off. You feel sorry for yourself, others might feel sorry for you. That pity can actually reinforce the procrastination habit.
Wow. Okay, so the source poses a pretty stark test to cut through all this, doesn't it?
It does. A really provocative question. Look hard at your life right now. Are you doing what you'd really choose to be doing? If you knew for certain you only had 6 months left to live?
That's sobering.
It is. And the author follows up by saying, look, in the grand scheme of eternity, whether you delay something meaningful for 30 years or just 6 months, it makes no real difference. You've still lost that time.
Delaying fulfillment makes no logical sense.
None at all. It just robs you of your most precious asset, the present moment. If you can do something now that moves you towards a goal you value, choosing procrastination is simply an erroneous choice, a self-defeating habit.
Okay, so assuming we manage to tackle procrastination, get a handle on useless emotions like anger, we're moving into the final stages of this journey toward personal mastery.
That's right. Now we have to confront some deep-seated fears and dependencies, things that hold us back from real growth and true autonomy.
And this starts with exploring the unknown, facing that fear.
Yes. We are so conditioned, right from childhood, to stick with what's familiar, avoid experimenting too much, find the right answer, stay with our own kind.
Why is that reluctance to change so powerful?
We buy into the myth that it's safer to tolerate the familiar devil, even if it's unpleasant, than to risk the uncertainty of change. We develop this idea that our self is fragile, easily broken if we step outside our comfort zone, or, heaven forbid, fail at something new.
But the source argues the opposite.
Completely. It argues you are inherently resilient, a tower of strength, really. The real risk, the greater danger of psychological collapse, comes from stagnation, from losing interest in life, choosing boredom, sameness, predictability over growth.
And this ties into the idea of security, internal versus external.
Vitally important distinction. External security, that's the stuff we usually chase. Money in the bank, a fancy job title, a nice house.
Things, possessions, status markers.
Right, and they're temporary. It can vanish overnight, market crash, job loss, natural disaster, poof.
So what's internal security then?
Internal security is the only kind that lasts. It's that deep down self-trust, that confidence that you possess the skills, the intelligence, the resilience to handle whatever life throws at you.
So things and possessions become bonuses.
Exactly. Pleasant additions may be useful tools, but they are not the foundation of your well-being. Your foundation is you.
The source uses a pretty extreme thought experiment to drive this home, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's designed to be jarring. Imagine you're stripped naked, flown to a completely foreign country. The source uses Red China as an example, reflecting its time, and just dropped in a field. No warning, no money, no ID, nothing.
What do you do?
Well, if your security is all external, you probably just lie there and moan, wait for rescue, feel helpless, paralyzed.
But if you have internal security,
you start assessing immediately what's around me. What skills do I have? How can I communicate? How do I find water, shelter, help? You start acting because your security isn't in what you have, it's in who you are and what you can do.
That self-trust also means we need a completely different view of failure, right? The source makes a bold claim here: failure does not exist.
It's incredibly challenging, that statement. Needs careful unpacking.
It sounds like denial, almost.
It can, but the nuance is key.
Yeah.
Failure, in this context, is defined as simply someone else's opinion about how an action should have turned out.
Okay.
Once you truly stop believing that any act must be performed in an other-directed way, meaning according to someone else's standards or definition of success, then failure as a judgment on yourself becomes impossible.
So you separate the outcome of the action from your worth as a person.
Absolutely. If you try to launch a business and it doesn't make money and folds, that specific endeavor wasn't successful in that specific way at that time, it does not mean you're a failure.
But our whole culture pushes against that, doesn't it? With the do your best mantra.
Oh, massively. That do your best idea drilled into us from kindergarten becomes the absolute cornerstone of what the source calls achievement neurosis.
Leading to perfectionism.
Straight to perfectionism. And what does perfectionism ultimately lead to?
Paralysis. Fear of starting anything you can't guarantee you'll ace.
Exactly. Winston Churchill nailed it. The maxim, nothing avails but perfection, may be spelled paralysis. If your standard is perfection, you'll avoid almost everything interesting or risky.
Like Luan, the straight A student example.
Right. Academically perfect, got all the A's. But socially, totally paralyzed, painfully shy, deeply unhappy. Why? Because she couldn't control the outcome of social interactions with the same certainty she could control a test score. The risk of failure was too high.
So what's the alternative mantra the source suggests instead of do your best?
It's beautifully simple and profoundly different. Just do.
Just do.
Yeah. The act of doing is infinitely more important than the perceived success of the outcome. Because where do we actually learn anything significant?
From messing up. From failures.
Exactly. We learn almost nothing from succeeding at things we already know how to do. Success just reinforces existing patterns. It's the mistakes, the attempts that don't quite work, the failures. That's where all the real learning and growth happens.
So we need to stop avoiding experiences just because they might not turn out perfectly.
We need to embrace them. Realize that every attempt, even one judged bad by external standards, is data. It's a step forward. It's practice.
So how do we practice overcoming this fear of the unknown, this fear of failure?
Deliberately. The source suggests intentionally failing at low-stakes things. Go play tennis and try to lose on purpose. Paint a deliberately terrible picture and hang it on your wall.
Why? What does that achieve?
It teaches your nervous system that failure isn't catastrophic. You lost the game, the painting is awful, and you're still okay. You're still a worthwhile person who maybe even enjoyed the activity itself. Regardless of the outcome, it builds that internal resilience. Your ability to handle the unknown is what makes you truly effective anywhere, anytime.
Okay. So we embrace the unknown. We redefine failure. Now we need to apply this independence to our relationships. Declare your independence.
This is another area where cultural norms often push us towards unhealthy patterns. The source puts it starkly. In any relationship in which two people become one, the end result is two half people.
Ouch. So psychological independence means what exactly? Freedom from need.
Freedom from obligatory relationships. Relationships where you feel bound by debt or guilt or fear, rather than genuine choice and affection.
If you feel compelled to do something in a relationship that you wouldn't freely choose, and that feeling breeds resentment, you're in a dependency trap, an erroneous zone.
Exactly. Needing others makes you vulnerable. It makes you a slave to their moods, their decisions, their presence. If they leave or disapprove, you feel like you collapse.
And society often reinforces this dependency, doesn't it? Especially within families.
Sadly, yes. Contrast the typical human parenting model with the animal kingdom example. The source uses the mama bear in Disney's Bear Country.
What does she do?
Teaches her cubs the skills they need to survive. How to fish, climb, find food. Then she leaves completely. Her job is done.
She doesn't hang around guilt-tripping them years later.
No. I sacrificed my best berry-picking years for you. Or, I stayed in that cold den because of you. No threatening a nervous breakdown if they don't visit for hibernation day. Her entire mission is to launch fully autonomous, independent bears into the world.
Whereas human parents sometimes subvert that goal.
Often, yes. The goal sometimes shifts from raising an independent adult to raising a child to hold on to, often using emotional debt, after all I've done for you, as the glue.
And this dependency pattern carries right over into marriage, creating that dynamic of dominance and submission.
Very often. The source describes a really common marriage crisis point, often around 4 to 7 years in. Initially, maybe one partner, often the woman in traditional setups, accepts a more submissive, dependent role.
Relies on the dominant partner for finances, decisions, maybe even identity.
Right. But then that submissive partner starts to feel stifled, trapped, resentful. They want more.
And the dominant partner's reaction is key here.
Crucial. Often, the dominant partner, maybe trying to seem supportive or modern, will encourage the submissive one to become more independent. Go back to school, get a job, be more assertive.
Sounds good on the surface.
Sounds great. But the source points out the hidden agenda often isn't true equality. It's about making the dependent partner a little more functional, maybe less complaining, but still ultimately subordinate.
So what happens when the submissive partner actually does it? They genuinely find their own confidence, their own power, start asserting real equality.
The dominant partner frequently panics. Utterly panics. This wasn't the deal. They didn't want a true equal. They wanted a slightly improved dependent who still knew their place.
And then they might try to sabotage that independence.
Exactly. Through guilt, threats, anger, withdrawing affection, trying to force the partner back into the familiar, controllable, submissive box.
And if the newly independent partner holds firm,
the whole structure of the marriage has to change. Sometimes the formerly dominant partner flips into a complaining, submissive role themselves. You don't need me anymore. Often, the only thing holding the marriage together at that point becomes fear. Fear of divorce, fear of being alone, not mutual growth or affection.
So real love, healthy love, requires minimal fusion. Maximum autonomy.
That's the goal. A relationship where each partner allows the other to be fully themselves, to be what they choose to be, without demands, expectations, or the need to control. Dependency, the source says, is the serpent in the paradise of a happy relationship.
Okay, so practically speaking, how do we cultivate this autonomy, especially in established relationships where dependency might be ingrained?
Concrete strategies are needed. The source suggests things like insisting on financial independence. If you earn money, you don't need to account for every penny to your partner. It's yours.
What else?
Taking mini trips alone, even just a day trip or an overnight somewhere, just to prove to yourself and the relationship that you can function happily and effectively on your own. It breaks the safety net feeling.
And at social events, like parties.
Don't cling together. Purposefully circulate separately. Talk to different people, then maybe join forces later.
Why?
You literally double your learning, your experiences, your connections, and it subtly reinforces that you are two whole, independent individuals choosing to be together, not two halves desperately clinging to each other for survival.
And perhaps the biggest misconception about dependency to shed.
The idea that you are responsible for making other people happy.
You're not. Not your partner, your kids, your friends.
Nope. They make themselves happy. Or unhappy. If you buy into the belief that it's your job to ensure everyone else's happiness, you set yourself up for neurotic failure. You'll feel constant guilt and self-blame every time someone you care about feels down.
You are responsible for your emotions.
And they are responsible for theirs. Internalizing that is the absolute bedrock of genuine independence.
Wow. Okay. We've journeyed through these major erroneous zones. The demand for justice, the chains of convention, letting go of anger and procrastination, facing the unknown, declaring independence.
It's quite a landscape we've covered.
So now, can we bring it all together, synthesize these ideas, and paint a picture? What does the person who has successfully navigated these traps actually look like? The portrait of a fully functioning person.
Yeah, and it's important to stress this isn't some mythical superhero. This is an attainable way of being. These people exist. They just have this maybe uncanny ability to be creatively alive, effective, and present in each moment. They're free from that self-destructive thinking.
So what are their key characteristics? Let's start with time. How do they relate to time?
First and foremost, they live in the present moment, deeply. They're non-worriers. They simply refuse to waste their precious now energy agonizing about a future they can't control.
And they're not stuck in the past either.
No regrets, no dwelling. And they're not postponers. They're not constantly saving up life for some imaginary rainy day that might never come.
They live now, like a child or an animal almost, just experiencing the moment.
Very much so. That natural absorption in the now. While others are waiting for some future event to finally make them happy retirement, the kids leaving home, the big promotion, the fully functioning person finds fulfillment and effectiveness right here, right now.
Okay, what about their relationship with other people's opinions?
This is huge. They possess an almost radical freedom from external opinion. They simply do not need approval from others.
Which means they can be more honest.
Often quite blunt, yes. Because they're not constantly filtering their words, trying to phrase things perfectly to please or avoid offending everyone. They recognize that seeking universal approval is a fool's errand.
They just accept that disapproval is going to happen sometimes.
It's a statistical certainty. If you express any real opinion or take any real action, someone, somewhere, isn't going to like it. And they are completely okay with that, unthreatened by it. They know their worth isn't determined by a popular vote.
And this internal security must translate into how they handle problems.
Absolutely. It leads to incredible mental toughness. Things that would completely derail or immobilize other people, setbacks, criticisms, unexpected problems, they see them as just minor annoyances, obstacles to navigate.
Not as reflections on their self-worth.
Never. Because their sense of self, their worth, is located inside. It's not dependent on external events going perfectly. So you can't really threaten them effectively.
You can't rage at them to control them.
Because they won't choose anger back.
You can't criticize them into paralysis.
Because your opinion doesn't hold more weight than their own self-assessment. They just shrug it off and keep moving.
What about their approach to life? Are they rigid? Organized?
Quite the opposite, usually. They demonstrate profound creativity and flexibility. They're not overly concerned with rigid order or excessive organization.
They see those things as tools, not goals.
Exactly. Useful means to an end, sometimes, but not ends in themselves. They don't automatically reach for the manual or consult an expert for every little thing. They trust their own minds.
They apply their own imagination.
To everything. Cooking a meal, solving a work problem, planning a trip. Their lives are marked by adaptability, improvisation. That's why they handle the unknown so well. They're used to figuring things out as they go.
And their attitude towards failure. We touched on this, but how does it look in practice?
They have a genuinely different attitude toward failure. They almost welcome it as a learning opportunity. They absolutely do not equate a failed attempt with a failed self.
And they're not defensive about mistakes.
Admirably undefensive. They tend to avoid arguments. If someone disagrees with them or criticizes their actions, they don't feel the need to justify or fight back. They might just state their view calmly, and if the other person pushes, they can simply say something like,
"Okay, that's fine. We just see it differently."
Exactly, we're just different. And they let it go. No ego bruising. This lack of defensiveness is what allows them to learn so incredibly quickly from experience.
Okay, finally, what drives them? What's their core motivation?
Their motivation is pure. It's driven by a fundamental desire to grow, to learn, to experience, to expand their capabilities and understanding.
Not by a need to fix something broken.
No. It's not about repairing perceived flaws or making up for past sins or compensating for feelings of inadequacy. Those are neurotic motivations.
Their motivation is forward-looking, positive.
Entirely. They genuinely like themselves, they treat themselves well, they refuse to get bogged down in self-pity or self-hatred, recognizing those are just more erroneous self-defeating choices. They still have problems, of course everyone does.
But the problems don't paralyze them emotionally.
Precisely. They're free from the emotional immobility that problems trigger in others.
So the ultimate sign of their mental health isn't that they never slip up, never fall back into an old pattern momentarily?
No, because everyone slips. We're human. The real measure is what they do the moment they realize they've slipped.
What do they do?
They don't beat themselves up. They don't wallow. They just get up, dust themselves off, Take a quick look. Okay, what happened there? Learn the lesson and immediately get back to the business of living effectively and choosing happiness in the very next present moment. No drama, just correction and continuation.
What a journey. That's an incredibly detailed map for navigating away from those self-imposed limits. We've looked at letting go of the demand for external justice, breaking free from stifling conventions, saying goodbye to debilitating anger and procrastination, learning to embrace the unknown, and finally declaring our own profound independence.
It really covers the major psychological traps that keep people from living fully. And it all leads back to a surprisingly simple understanding of what happiness really is.
Right. It's not something complex we have to chase or achieve out there somewhere.
No. The historian Will Durant described his own search beautifully. He spent his life seeking happiness in knowledge, but found only disillusionment. He sought it in travel, found weariness. In wealth, found discord and anxiety. In writing, found mostly fatigue.
Where did he finally find it or understand it?
In a moment of simple observation, he saw a man in a small beat-up car gently kiss his wife, who was holding their sleeping child. Just a quiet, loving, ordinary moment. The family drove off.
And that hit him.
It was a revelation. He suddenly understood, as he put it, that every normal function of life holds some delight. He realized he just needed to stop chasing the grand, complex, external symbols of fulfillment and start noticing the inherent value and potential joy in the present moment, in ordinary living.
So the person who has managed to clear out these erroneous zones, they don't really chase happiness at all.
Not really. They just focus on living. Effectively, authentically, autonomously in the present. And happiness becomes the natural byproduct, the payoff.
And this isn't some future state to aspire to someday.
It's a choice. A profound choice you can start making right now, in this moment.
So the challenge for everyone listening
is to identify just one area, one specific erroneous zone where you feel stuck right now. Is it a social convention, a should that's chafing against your real desires? Is it a fear of failure holding you back from trying something new you've been putting off?
Find that one specific area of paralysis.
Look right at it, acknowledge it, and then in your very next conscious present moment, make the choice to apply that simple, powerful mantra.
Just do.
Just do. Choose action over paralysis. Choose autonomy over dependency. Choose effectiveness over the endless, futile demand for perfect justice. Make the choice for yourself now.
Thank you. That was an incredibly insightful deep dive into personal mastery.
My pleasure. It's powerful stuff to explore. We look forward to our next exploration together.
Absolutely. See you next time on The Deep Dive.